Hello. Well, I've got a video I'm making today to answer a question I see asked all the time, and that is, what do we need for solar for living off grid? I have a little shy of 4.5 kilowatts. We put this together through a few years. Our original set was that little Harbor Freight setup you can see there. I'm not sure if it's visible in the video, but one of them has a hole in it from a hailstone. Um, we get decent hail, but nothing spectacular out here. That particular array is rated at, I believe, 65 watts, and it is worthless. At best, it put out maybe 30 watts. We invested after that in these 100-watt panels. You see, we've got 3 there and another 6 on the other side. Those were our only solar panels for quite a good while. We got by with those. It was enough to provide power for our lights, and that was, about it. Charge our cell phones, things like that. Water pump in the camper. And we had them mounted up high on top of an old fifth wheel, as you can see. That's fine in the summer until they get covered in dust and you need to clean them. Climbing up there with the squeegee is not the end of the world, but it's not fun or very safe either. But come winter, taking the snow off of them is a royal pain. So my next set, I saved up a bit and I bought a pallet from Santan. These were used panels. You can see I put a row across the bottom there, and that brought us up to the point where we had plenty of power to do anything we wanted all summer long. But it wasn't quite enough in the winter. And I went ahead and bought another pallet. So you can see I've got 5 panels there, and you can see just the top corner there of 2 more panels I've got on the other side. And we have these so that in the winter, it's the sun sets about 4 o'clock. About 2 o'clock, these panels start to get covered by the shed that I'm standing next to. So I set these panels up facing due west, and when the rest of the panels are basically not producing anymore, those are just reaching the peak of their production. So that extends my production time basically right up until sunset. Today, it's just about the end of December. You can see we've got fairly cloudy skies. The sun actually just broke through. Well, it's not fully through the clouds, but it's a moderately cloudy day. It was quite overcast until about 30 minutes ago. And in spite of that, we've got enough power to run everything in our home. My wife is using the washing machine right now. Used an electric griddle this morning to cook breakfast. And the batteries, basically yesterday we had an awesome sunshine day. We had full sun right up until sunset. So the batteries started off the night as fully charged as they could be. So getting through to the next morning, it was, they were probably at about 50% capacity. So that's why we still had enough power to run things like the electric griddle. And if it had been a fully cloudy day, then I wouldn't have done that because, we want to try to save the battery life as much as we can. But as long as it's going to be partly cloudy like this, we can totally just live our lives the way we normally would. We've got an electric water heater, and I've got it rigged so that it only comes on when the voltage is high enough. I did hear it kick on a couple of times today. This right here is our battery shed. We have LiFe PO4 batteries, the newest generation of lithium. Not lithium ion, but LiFe PO4. They are sensitive to the cold, so I've got them inside heated boxes. Now these boxes, that one's kind of hard to open, so I'll just show you on this one. I would not ordinarily open these up in the winter, but it's a pretty warm day today. It's something like high 30s, low 40s. So go ahead and open this up so you can see. The 2 boxes you see on top there are actually the battery backup for my internet connection. We've got a fiber internet connection that has a little lithium battery, so it has to stay heated as well. So I put it in here, but underneath that you can see the 2 batteries that I've got in this box. I've got another 3 batteries in that one, room for 4, but I couldn't afford a 4th one, so we just have 3 sitting in there. And I do have this covered in another video, but I've got some light bulbs, 12 volt regular. They're not LED light bulbs, they're just regular incandescents that I pulled from cars. I got one at the top and one at the bottom. I would have them both at the bottom, but that one at the top is too big to fit down there. Batteries, I've got a little air gap all the way around them. The light bulbs are rigged to this little thermostat. It reads in Celsius. It's 7 degrees Celsius in there, well above freezing. And whenever it drops down to, I think I have it set for 5 degrees Celsius, then the light bulbs kick on and they stay on until it rises above 5 degrees. Doing that, I have not seen my batteries freeze once, and that was even down to, I think about 25 below is the lowest I've looked at it. Over here, we've got our charge controllers. You can see I've got a mess of them. These are each connected to 2 solar panels. Now I have I have 2 battery arrays here. I've got my lithiums, which are in the boxes, and then I have a lead acid array. It's actually the old array that I used to run my house off of. It's 4 6-volt golf cart batteries that are hooked in parallel and series. So it's a 12-volt array. They are, I believe, 200 amp hour batteries, but 200 amp hour 6-volt batteries is 200 amp hours at 12 volts. So it is a 400 amp hour battery array, and we use it for powering everything that is 12 volt. So we've got a couple of 12 volt lights, like for instance the light in this shed. It's just an LED 12 volt light. And we've got the heaters, of course, inside the battery boxes, the water pump in our house, and a couple other 12 volt lights that I've got set up in places. Now the reason I have a mixture of 12 and 110 volt lights is because the 110 volt power will go out if these batteries drop too low, and I'd like to be able to turn the lights on no matter what, especially like for instance the light in this room. So I ran it off the 12 volt system so that those lights will come on no matter what. As long as the batteries have something in them, those lights will come on. Then over here I've got, and before I get into this, the charge controllers, I have one charge controller that is hooked up to the lead acid batteries. That's that one right there. You can see it's showing the batteries are full. The others are all connected to the lithium array, and you can see they're indicating that the batteries are not quite full. That's because, of course, the lithium array is the one that gets a lot of usage. The 12 volt array more or less just sits there full all the time, which is perfect because 12 volt battery, or lead acid batteries don't like to be drained very far. That's the only reason these are still working after 2 years. It's because they just basically don't really get used. The lithium array powers 3 inverters. I only use 2 of them. The one in the middle is my emergency backup in case one of the other 2 dies, because I don't want my food to all spoil because the inverter died. So I've got it set up so that I can just move everything over to the middle one if I need to. During the winter, as long as I'm not running any big power tools or anything, I actually don't use the bottom one either. I have everything running from the top inverter. It's a 3,000 watt constant pure sine inverter, which is more than enough to do everything in a house, including running our small water heater and, like I say, everything in a house. We've got a refrigerator, 2 chest freezers, TV, whatever, laptops, cell phones. But if I'm going to be running power tools or doing anything too significant, the way I have it all summer is that I've got the appliances on one and everything else on the other. This one, I believe, is, it's a 3,000 watt as well. Different brand. They're both pure sine. They both work great. They both consume power whether you're using them or not, which is the big reason why I switched down to only one in the winter, because otherwise it's just extra power lost that I don't need to lose. My spare is actually an older one that I used to have. I upgraded from it. As you can see, it's only a 2,000 watt, which is plenty for most things, but the appliances were a little too much for that, and it would occasionally kick the breaker. So there you have it. That's a quick rundown of my solar setup. I go into a lot more detail in my book, so if you have more questions, you can certainly check there. But otherwise, feel free to ask me questions, and I can answer whatever I can. One more thing I'd like to show you: the wiring. I like to separate my positive and negative wiring. So I've got everything that can be hit by the sun is inside a pipe, because solar will degrade, or rather the solar rays will degrade everything. This has never once been in the sun, but you can see the coating is flaking off just from ambient sunlight. The wiring that I use is all 10 gauge. So I've got the positives in one set of conduit and the negatives in the other. And I keep them apart so that if by some awful chance the casing does get entirely broken through, it's not possible to short because just physically they'd have to touch each other. I don't have them in close contact anywhere. Everything is separated that way. All of my panels, I number the wires. Probably can't see any of it right here, but I number the wires at both ends so that I always know what wire goes to what panel. That's just kind of a general good practice sort of thing to do. And then for the frame, I used landscape timbers because they can be in close contact with the dirt, and just basically built a very simple frame. Used some 2x to build a framework across those landscape timbers, and then mounted from the panels themselves onto the 2x. Now, some of them I did this way with little L brackets. That was the way I was doing it at first. Later on, I just went ahead and drilled all the way through and put bolts through the panel and the 2x. And that is a pretty straightforward way to do it. It's been very solid. I built this array. I've also did the same thing over on my grandfather's array, and it's held up very well through the winters. Putting them down lower like this, I started to touch on this earlier, but putting them down lower like this, much easier to clear the snow off of. I have a long-handled broom. We can easily clean all of these when it's snowing. I don't even bother trying to clean the ones up there on the roof because it's just too much work. So, yeah, again, if you have questions, let me know.